I hated the way I got treated. I hated the way I saw my father treat my mother. I hated the fact that my mother was willing to just openly leave me and my little brother and my little sister. My little brother was like 3, tried every night for my mother to come home. Hated the fact that my father, instead of, you know, giving me my first collar, man, he fronted me. I sold drugs for my father. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I was ordered by my father at age 16 to kill someone. And
Get ready to crush it. Crush it. Yeah. This is the Crush It Podcast with Matt and Mason.
All right, everybody, welcome back into the Crush It Podcast. I am your co-host, Matt Davis, along with the other co-host, Mason Burchett. How's it going?
Thank you for that clarification. It is going outstanding. Never better.
Absolutely. Wonderful to hear. Well, hope everybody up to this point has enjoyed the goal calls. We have really enjoyed putting those out there, just those short 8 to 10 minute snippets on
The snippet. Yes, the snippet.
the snippets in Mason's word on Monday mornings. And so hope you're enjoying that. But Mason, there's a third person here with us. I'm going to let you introduce our...
There is a third party. And if they're watching via video, they already know that because his face is right
Boom,
there on the screen.
there it is.
It's right there. You can't pass it. Guys, we have a good friend and actual relative of mine on the podcast today. Tyler Carroll, welcome to the Crush It Podcast,
Welcome
man.
to the show.
what's up, guys? Glad to be here. Excited.
Awesome. So Tyler is, I've known Tyler my whole life, and dude has a killer story and is like-minded. He has got the crush it mentality, and he had a really cool road to get there. And so we brought him on the podcast to hang out
Absolutely.
and talk a little bit about that. So Tyler, we're not gonna mess around. We're gonna jump right into it, man. Let's start off with just your background. Give us a little bit from the start and catch us up to speed on your story, how you got to where you're at right now.
Sure. So I've, I guess you'd say, have a past and a history that's always kind of set me apart from the crowd ever since I was a child. I was, raised in an abusive home. A lot of, saw my mother get abused and beat on a lot. A lot of, I hope it's okay to say all this on here. It's gonna be pretty raw.
Absolutely.
Raised in a dope house. So my father, namely, sold drugs after my mother had left us. So I'll start from the very beginning. As far back as I can remember Dad and Mom would quote unquote get into it. I guess as a child, I just called it Mommy and Daddy arguing. But I can remember my dad, busting my mother's nose or threatening to kill her, or just beating on her pretty bad. I can even remember one time I was about 7. If my memory serves me correct, and my mother had asked him for something that, on, your normal person or marriage, you wouldn't think it would be that big of a deal, but it's just rubbed him the wrong way. So he grabbed a 30-30 lever action and he shoved it up under his chin. Well, my 2-year-old brother was watching, and I heard him chamber it and stick it underneath his chin and ask her if, he if she wanted him to just go ahead and end his life right there in front of them both. And I can remember taking my hands and putting them over my ears and thinking how loud that it was going to be, because I'd heard my dad talk about how loud that a gun could be in a home. And I remember thinking, God, this is just going to bust everybody's eardrums. And I was trying to think of how I could get the window open. And I was on the top bunk, and started to climb down and all that. And I just remember thinking how terrified I was as a child. Don't strike you, hey, Dad's actually going to die. You're just worried about the noise. You're worried about, I guess you say self-preservation.
Right.
And just hoping he didn't shoot your mom and your brother before he shot himself, And that, man, was my childhood through and through. I saw stuff like that. I remember seeing my father, headbutt my mom right in the face and bust their nose and black both of her eyes. I can remember them, ironically enough, carrying us to church and her having to wear glasses through service because her eyes would be black from him beating on her. I can remember him body slamming her and threatened to break her neck. I remember once where the house wasn't clean enough, and he decided that she had too many distractions. And I'm taking this somewhere, by the way. I just kind of need to
Sure.
where I am now today, and at least the mindset that I have. it
Yeah.
won't carry the weight that it has if I don't tell you
Absolutely.
in a nutshell what I experienced, guys. So just entertain me let me entertain you for a few minutes with these stories. I can remember that the house wasn't clean enough, so he, if anybody knows anything about rifles on here, he grabbed an SKS rifle, and it had like a 30-round mag in it, and he felt she had too many distractions. And back then, everybody had satellite dishes, and so the satellite dish was on top of the house, and I can remember him coming through the house towards my mother with it, and I thought he was gonna, just kill the whole family the way he was acting so irate. I can remember stepping on the front porch, and he just obviously it's on top of the house, and we're all inside the house. So he aimed an SKS rifle at his family and just blew that satellite dish to bits, man. He put on how many rounds in that stupid thing.
Wow, that's
it
incredible.
obviously didn't work after that. And then the computer was next. One other day, she left to go somewhere, and he threw the computer out in the yard. And I think he put like 7 or 8 rounds of double-aught buck into her computer. So it
Tyler,
wasn't uncommon for me to see stuff like that.
You're a pretty young kid at this point, experiencing this stuff.
Yeah.
You said at one point you were
Yeah.
7, 8 years old?
Yeah, so I haven't went past 8 yet. 8 years
Okay.
old, the stuff that I've told you. Yeah, I haven't went past 8 yet. Yeah.
And so this is a common
forever,
theme. This is a common theme throughout those years of your childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was it wasn't uncommon. I can remember once my mom, told me that she almost committed suicide over it with that very same rifle that I was just discussing. And just to hear things like that as a child, man, it can mess you up. It can mess with your head. I mean, how could it not?
The weight of that as an adult, but then to put that kind of weight on a 6, 7, 8-year-old is just mind blowing.
Yep, those are a lot of my earliest memories. I'm not going to say it was all bad. I'm not going to say they're all terrible memories, but the vast majority of the memories that stick out to me are of, my mom, either spending all the money and the lights getting cut off or something crazy like that, or dad pulled a gun on mom, or just something just crazy, going on in the house. And eventually she just left. And to a certain extent, I can't blame her. But when she left, she just forgot a few things. She forgot her 3 children. And so we were, stuck there. And we were stuck there. And he took off on the road and was gone for a couple of years. But to fast forward a little, he met my was then stepmom. He married my stepmom, and she was a paranoid schizophrenic. And her children were ages 16 and I believe 18, 16 and 17, 16 and 18. And they were into methamphetamine and cocaine. The day I met them, the girl was turning from 15 to 16 and she was pregnant, and they were in her bedroom partying. And so that just, again, that was, I guess, a sign of the years to come. And they ended up, of course, I made decisions myself. I believe in accountability and ownership, but a result of a lot of that was me trying drugs and alcohol and tobacco at a very early age. Before I turned 13, I was smoking marijuana, drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, wanting to try, quote unquote, bigger and better things, because you're just already pretty destitute as a child and already mentally wore out. And the last thing you want is to not be able to fit in, and they had drug dealers and people partying on a daily basis. And it, especially being young and already susceptible to being bullied and picked on, you really wanted to fit in. And if that meant smoking marijuana to me or whatever, I was unfortunately willing to do that and had no adults to tell me otherwise, because the adults that were there were also giving it to me and partaking, and just as the years went on, I can remember one time my stepmom and stepbrother got in a fight where they just, in one fight, I saw my stepbrother catch a full-size house telephone, which was huge back then, upside his head, a pot of boiling water, and a broom, just in one fight out of dozens. Wow. And it was just like that all the time, where they might throw, a 8-inch candle or something at each other, or throw Coke cans through the walls, throw them at each other so hard, just things like that all the time, fighting and drugs, just basically what that lifestyle brings. And then on into my teenage years, definitely, again, I made my own choices and decisions, but you could definitely say somewhat a product of my environment. Right. I decided that if I was going to grow up in that, and if I was going to live in that I would be good at it, so to speak. That if I was going to be around gangbangers and drug dealers on a daily basis, that I would be one of them. But not only would I be one of them, I'm don't want to brag by no means, because I'm not bragging, especially about this, but I've never been good at being average or mediocre. I've always wanted to be the best for the most part at whatever I did. And if that meant killing people, or if that meant robbing people or selling dope or whatever, I was going to do it, and I was going to be good at it, make a name for myself. Because you don't, in an environment like that as a child, you don't get a whole lot of respect, or you don't get a whole lot of love is what I needed, but you don't get a lot of respect or love or any of that. And I guess I just kind of figured as a teenager, I was gonna get something that made me feel good emotionally somehow. With respect or fear, either one, it made no difference to me as a teenager. And so I went into, breaking into homes, and again, just a lot of more hard drug use, got into pills and, methamphetamine and heroin and stuff like that. At age 16, I joined a gang, a Hispanic gang. They let in the occasional white boy. I joined them. I joined a gang. I was 16. Ran with them for a couple of years, and a lot of them were leaving that scene and having children, just getting deported and going to jail and stuff like that. And at that point, I was just so strung out and so far gone that I was too loud, quote unquote, is what they called it for them. I was bringing too much attention and too much heat on the crew. And I was ousted like a year and a half to 2 years into being in the gang for just causing. I just was hurting too many people. I was bringing the cops on us way too heavy and too hard.
So Tyler, let me pause you there.
Sure.
Because you're in your mid-teenage years right here, 16 to 17 or so. Is that right?
Yeah. The end of about 17. Yeah.
From the tone of this conversation, it keeps you're putting your foot on the gas pedal. Like, and you said you never wanted to settle, even in the lifestyle you're talking about. You wanted to be the quote unquote best at it.
Yeah.
What? Help us see what do you think the driving factor was? That was it the fear of missing out? Was it the need for respect? What do you think was making you push the gas pedal so hard on that?
Man, honestly, if I were just taking just a bold, honest look, I think it was hate. I hated the way I got treated. I hated the way I saw my father treat my mother. I hated the fact that my mother was willing to just openly leave me and my little brother and my little sister. My little brother was like 3, tried every night for my mother to come home. I hated the fact that I was given that, I guess you say, that lot in life. I hated the fact that I didn't have a mother. I just hated all of it, man. Hated the fact that my father, instead of, giving me my first car, man, he fronted me. I sold drugs for my father. Yeah. You know what I mean? I was ordered by my father at age 16 to kill someone. And luckily I had an uncle, one of my uncles with some common sense, man, that talked us both down out of it. But I was going to be a murderer for my own father. I guess I hated that. I hated that. I could see other people, like, for instance, we didn't see each other a whole lot back then, but I heard stories, I've got a cousin who's, studying to be a EMS worker and in school and doing good and the Civil Air Patrol, things like that. And I guess you said there was a sense of like jealousy of, God, man, why do I got to have these crazy people in my life? And,
sure.
And I guess that's what you'd say. I just hate drove me to do things that I never thought that I would treat people the way that I treated them. I never thought that I would stoop to some of the lows that I stooped to, and then even still at this point, I wasn't quite at the bottom. It was shortly after being ousted from the gang that I was in, and I gained rank quick there. I was the leader of all the younger people. I was a capo, or I guess you'd say, I was a lieutenant in the gang, and was ousted and lost that sense of, at least that gave me somewhat of a sense of, I guess you'd say, responsibility, kind of, and a sense of belonging, a sense of family, and I lost that, and things just went downhill even worse from there. It got a lot less about being, hardcore or kind of corny terms, macho or whatever, and a lot more about drugs and getting high. Just trying to fill that void, man, of the childhood that I had was so terrible. There was a lot of things that a child needs, and even then that I needed that I wasn't getting. And I was willing to just fill that with just, all kind of drugs and things like that. And I ended up, by the age of, 19, I'd been to jail. But before the age of 20, I'd been to jail 4 times. Okay. I hadn't been to prison yet. I almost went to prison for my whole life. My grandfather, about this same age, my grandfather passed away. And a lot of what really... it's crazy how things work out. Life can either happen to you or it can happen for you. this is definitely a case where life happened for me. My grandfather passed away, and you know, obviously don't have time to spend all night on it, but a lot of through this, the stability that I had through a lot of this childhood, the only stability I had was from my grandfather and my grandmother and my aunt, his daughter. They would take me in and feed me and clothe me, you know, make sure that I didn't go without too much, you know, and they would kind of anchor me through a lot of this just crazy stuff that I was doing. And we were very close, is my point. He died. He had a massive heart attack, and he literally drew his last breath while I was in his face. And I guess just when that happened, the idea of being, you know, finite, the fact that every one of us are going to die one day,
Right.
it just hit me and it stuck with me. And I became a Christian, and I ended up leaving all that stuff behind, you know, getting out of drugs, thank God, and just, you know, sobered up and left it behind. Ended up getting into church, and I met my wife there and got married. And I did well. I sobered up, you know, which was huge. You know, I used to joke with my friends I would never make it past the age of 18. Like it was to say that I was going to make it to 19 years old was a joke. Everybody knew Tyler was going to get killed before then. I would either get shot, most likely shot, or OD, either one of the two. And I did overdose several times. God had mercy on me, you know. But I ended up getting married. I had no education. I have my GED, but I have a 7th grade education to this day. Now, I'm no fool. I'm plenty smarter. If it wasn't that, I was just a really bad kid in school. And I know that's crazy to say the guy has a 7th grade education, but the last grade I finished in school was 7th. I was just that bad. They kicked me out, and I went and got a job. I've been working, you know, since I was a young teenager. And so anyways, my point is here I am. I've left that lifestyle behind. I've gotten married, and I started having children. Now it's time to quit partying and fooling around. Now it's time to become a provider. And you got to think with my family history, you know, yes, my grandfather was a great person. Yes, he worked hard. But as far as having any financial literacy, he had zero. He worked hard his whole life. And this is going to kind of take us into something else, Mason, where I'm getting more into the mindset of success. I don't know if you need to interject anything, but ultimately, my grandfather's death affected me so much that even years later, almost a decade later, he would end up, him and his circumstances surrounding his death and what financial shape he left my grandmother in, ended up changing my whole life and my mindset about 2 years ago.
Wow.
So if you want to, how he died and the debt that he left, the fact that a man worked his whole life very hard. He didn't party. He didn't believe in doing things like that. Just a hard worker, a great person, wasn't into drugs and all that. The fact that he died after working hard his whole life, and instead of leaving his family something, he literally left them in the hole. He literally left them dead. Would weigh so heavy on me that about 2 years ago I said, enough. I was working like third shift, working a ton of hours in a plant, in a place I hated, miserable. And it just hit me, man. I'm going to live and die. I've done great. God's been good to me. I've left the drugs behind. I've left the old lifestyle behind. But I'm going to live and die just like him. If I don't wake up and I don't change what I'm doing, I'm going to keep getting what I've been getting. I'm going to be working a low-wage factory job till I'm 70. And then I'm going to die.
So Tyler, let's transition the conversation to this point and just take a minute. And thank you, Tyler, for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of personal information, and we really appreciate that because that sets the stage for the rest of this conversation. And man, oh man, I mean, if you had just come out of that and been a sober bag boy at Ingles, you know, for the rest of your life, you know, you said you became a Christian, you know, you became a man of faith. Yep. And left all that behind. Hey, that would have been a great story. You know, that would have been awesome and inspiring all of its own. But you didn't stop there. No. You know, you got out of it. You pulled yourself up by the bootstraps, but you wanted more.
Yes.
And that was going to be my question. At what point? Because you've had a lot of change through your life, and no doubt a change of mindsets. And the Crush It podcast, the Crush It team, a lot of what we talk about is mindsets because your mindset is such a powerful thing. I mean, you said, you know, the hatred of your younger years drove you, you know, down some of those bad paths. And then again, your mindset seeing your grandfather drove you in a totally opposite direction. Give us a little bit of that emotion of your grandfather's story that, like, what flipped the switch? What was it about that flipped the switch for you to go down that path of being more and being successful?
Sure. So like you said, it would already be a success story, so to speak. Had I just, like you said, been a minimum wage worker the rest of my life and left all the other things in my past where they belong. But I was a team leader at one of the local factories. It's in Hendersonville, working just, like I said, on third shift, miserable. The place is chaotic. Management's terrible. I hate the job. Just pretty much miserable. I'm about as miserable as someone could be in their job. We've all been there, right? I don't know if it's my past and how I had to change and how drastically I had to change to survive, that maybe I had kind of an intuition about it. For some reason, there was just this one particular week that was really rough at work, Mason. And I don't know, I just remember coming home to my wife and saying, God, this is awful. Like, I don't want this to be I don't want to live out. So many people are going to live out the same work week for the next 30 years of their life.
Yeah.
And they'll be doing good to even retire from it. And that is just heartbreaking and mind-boggling that people would even think that way. Look, if that's what somebody else wants for their life, then fine, so be it. I'm not knocking it.
Right.
But everything that I've been through, see, I have to pause and interject. There's a period in between the age of just turning 20 and leaving all the drugs and stuff behind, and about 25, 26, when I started to get the success mindset, where I had a very sick daughter who almost died, and my wife dealt with severe depression, and I severely injured my back, and it was just like, just situation after situation where we dealt with just heartbreaking and circumstances, and like, my little girl was 4 years old and she just took her first steps the other day. Like, she almost died twice as a little baby. Both times she was in my arms, she quit breathing. Like, she's
Wow.
on her next surgery will be her 6th surgery. She's had 2 back surgeries, a brain surgery, and a bladder surgery, and there'll be like probably another dozen surgeries in her future. Like, that is a lot of pressure, man.
Absolutely.
You've got all the things I had from my childhood, all the things I have from my past. My back hurts me every single day to a level that's just ridiculous. My wife is dealing with god-awful depression, barely holding it together, and my daughter could die. Could literally die. Like, she's been in that bad of health many a time. She's doing great now, thank God, but she was in terrible health. And all this is going on right about the time I'm having this awful week at work, and I'm like, God, I need money. Like, I need a lot of money.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I need a lot of money, man. I one of the things that drives me to this day, like, I need the money to afford a decent therapist for my wife. Won't fix everything, but by God, it helped.
Absolutely.
I need money. One day I'll die, and I'll leave a disabled little girl in this world, hopefully. Hopefully she lives that long. I'll leave a very disabled, mentally and physically little girl in this world. She's still in a wheelchair, and she'll use a wheelchair most of her life, if not all of it. I don't want her to go to a crappy, cheap nursing home because Daddy died broke and poor. Like, those are the things, like, that
Absolutely.
I'm getting fired up right now.
Yeah,
I am too.
That sucks that, like, it literally, my little girl could pay the price with her life in a crappy nursing home after I die if I don't work hard now and fix this situation.
Okay,
I don't change what I'm doing.
So for our listeners, Matt, this is great. Look, for our listeners, we have not had previous conversations about Tyler. We have not coached him on what to say here. What you're listening is a real life example of what me and Matt talk about every freaking podcast about defining your success.
What is it for you?
If you want to work minimum wage your entire life and you think that's successful, then do it. But what you're hearing is Tyler waking up one day to realize that was not what success looks like for him. He wanted something more. He wanted to do something bigger. Matt, dissect this for me.
And you know what I love? I love the statement that he made, as simple as it is, where he said, I thought, I need some money. Like, as simple as that is, because here's the thing. Here's what we're hearing in society. Well, money won't make you happy. Well, you don't need to don't go after the money. Look, here's the deal. Money by itself cannot make you happy. It can't. Okay. And that's where people take that phrase out of context. But when you have needs to fulfill, and listen, I understand a little bit when you have a little girl that has special needs. I grew up with a brother that had severe special needs. And so what it does is there's different things that there's a lot of expenses. There's a lot of things that a lot of people don't realize. And the reality is a lot of people would look at where Tyler's at in that mindset and say, oh, well, all he cares about is money, when it's really not about the money. It's about the freedom and the leverage that money brings to leave, Mason, what we talk about, a legacy behind. I mean, we talk about, and I remember back when was it Jeff Bezos that just went through, within the last couple of years, just went through a divorce?
Yes.
Was it Jeff Bezos? Yeah. Well, I heard all these people come out, well, that just goes to show when you with all that money, it won't do anything for, and they started acting like that the money was the reason for the divorce.
Right.
Well, how about the millions of other marriages that have ended because there wasn't enough money?
Right.
We like to focus on that. And I love the simple fact that he said, you know what, success for me, if I'm going to reach that level of success for me, for my family, for my wife, for my little girl, I just need some money. I love the simplicity of that.
It is simple. So, that was your turning point, Tyler. And what you said, it's a simple thing for him to say, Matt, but what I'm hearing when I hear that is Tyler wants to leave an inheritance for his children's children.
Yes.
He wants to leave something for his children and for his children's children. It's the legacy journey. It's what we talk about all the time. Take us a little bit more down that path, Tyler.
Sure. So I am, and those things are by far, that's the main driving factor with me. Not for whatever reason, but for the simple fact, I don't want somebody to treat my daughter poor.
Right.
Nursing homes are notorious for treating people very poor. Lifespans, being cut short and so on and so forth. I'm sure there's some great ones out there. I'm sure there's some great CNAs out there. I want the best for my daughter. She's been through enough. I've been through enough. My wife has been through enough. We've worked so hard to give her the best care and to keep her clean and to nurture her. I want her to have the best even when I'm gone. Whether it means at home care, whatever, that matters. But not only am I trying to ensure that and secure that, I'm trying to change a family legacy of alcoholics and boomers who have nothing, and people who just have no education, whether it be financial or academic. I'm trying to change the Carroll family legacy. When you mention the Carroll name regarding my set of Carrolls, right now it's not the greatest. I want to completely change that to not the Irish hot-tempered drunks. Is what you would typically think when you would say the name Carroll to,
sure.
Hey, that's that family of successful people. That's that, that empire that Tyler Carroll worked so hard to build. I want, the fact that my grandfather did die and leave so much debt. It's so bad that my grandmother will have to die, and we will have to take her insurance policy money to pay off my grandfather's funeral.
Wow.
I'm changing that. So help me God. I will turn the tables on. I will change that. So help me God. I'm telling you.
So here's what we just did. Here's what Tyler just did for us and our entire listenership. He just eliminated and squashed the entire excuse of my family. Well, it's because of my parents. It's because of my grandparents. It's because of how I was raised. Because what Tyler's doing is saying, hey, I was raised this way, but I'm going to do it this way. We're going to completely change the family legacy. And I love that, because so many people love to use their past family's way of doing things as a crutch and as an excuse to not be successful themselves. And Tyler, you just completely eliminated that excuse.
Absolutely. And it's not just monetarily, but like I strive to be the best father that you could possibly be, and the best husband that you could possibly be, because I didn't have that growing up. It's,
right.
People are lazy, man, and they want to make excuses of, have this issue or this thing in my way or whatever, man. If you just get off your laurels and you decide that you're going to do better, you can change it. I'll change my family. So help me God, I will. I'll change the lack of financial literacy. I'll change those things.
So here's my question, and Mason, if you want to interject something here, but I wanted to ask a question.
Sure.
So we've gotten through. We've talked about your past. We've talked about where you got saved, you're a man of faith now, that changed. We've talked about the mindset change where you were working in that factory or warehouse and had that change, decided that was not who you were going to be anymore. Here we are. What, that was 2 years ago? Am I remembering that correct? About 2 years ago. So here we are in, June of 2020. How much different as far as what you're doing from 2 years ago when you said at that horrible week of work and you said, I'm done. Talk a little bit about the last 2 years and what changes on a practical level have you made to assure you are getting to that level of success you want to see.
Sure. So a lot of it is, like I said, the devil's in the details. It's not so much the long term matters, but for me, I'm finding as I start that road towards success, that it's what I do every day that makes the difference.
Boom.
It's getting up on time. It's the little things. It's it's making sure that I read every day. It's making sure that I decided I wanted to go into software, making sure that I code every day. And making sure that I run, making sure that I eat decent, making that decision to be, I guess, say a better Carroll, for lack of a better, just a better family member. It's the day-to-day things. I started setting goals for one. I need to code X amount of hours per day. I need to read, an hour a day, I think is what I said. It's not a lot compared to some, but I set a goal to read 20 books this year on, personal development, finance, success, so on and so forth, and I know that's, again, not a lot compared to some, but, when I started this road towards success, I started reading where, the one thing that, billionaires have in common is they read like crazy. I think Buffett reads like 6 hours a day plus. Right. And if it worked for them,
absolutely,
common sense says it's probably it sure can't hurt me. It definitely can't hurt me. I just read Mindset by Carol Dweck. Have you guys read that book?
Outstanding book.
Yes. It'll
change your life. It'll change your life. And I think I'm on book like 8 for the year, 8 or 9. But so I started reading and just putting forth the effort, man. Setting goals. I'm hoping I still have a little ways to go, but hoping to be able to join a software company soon as a professional developer. Like I said, I might still have another year or two to go for that. That can take some work. But the ultimate thing is at the end of the day, I'm getting a vision of what it is that I want.
Yeah.
For within the next 5 years, I know you got to know where you're headed if you're going to go somewhere. You can't just blindly say I'm going to be rich and successful, but not have a vehicle, not have a way to get there. And I'm sure it won't all work out the way that I've got it planned. I'm sure it won't all go the way that I want it to go. But I still have to define something nonetheless. I feel that it's prudent to do so. So I have decided that I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to teach myself how to code. I'm going to get a decent education. I'm going to go work for a software company, become a professional software engineer. Then I'm going to start my own company and deliver software as a service. And I want to go into helping people with addiction via application and via software. I have several ideas for how I want to hopefully change the world by keeping people accountable. And so I want to own my own software company one day.
So Tyler is not a dreamer. He once had a dream, but what he just told you is he had a dream, he grabbed it, pulled it out of the clouds, drew a blueprint, and made a plan for how to build that dream. And now it's not a dream anymore. Now it's a goal. Yeah. And he's got a strategy to hit that goal. This is exactly what we've been talking about. This is a very timely conversation, Matt.
Absolutely. So that's just amazing. And again, if we just take the second half of this conversation and we talk about just Tyler's life since his early 20s, when he got saved, got married, had decided, put these goals into place, and is working hard to get them. That by itself is a great story too.
Exactly.
The first half is a fantastic story. The second half is a fantastic story. But what we've got here is where both of those are in the same life with the same person. And that's absolutely amazing. Something that I actually wrote down that jumped out at me. And he made the statement a little earlier. He said, when he was talking about how that hate and maybe even a little bit of jealousy was driving him, and he would hear about what was going on in his family over there with you, Mason, and with, with Jordan and everything that was going on there. Why don't I have that? Why don't, why haven't I been given the opportunity? People are dealt two different hands, but here we are sitting on a Skype call, recording a podcast with both of you sitting here looking at success, defining that for yourselves in a place where it's only up from here. That for me is mind blowing. That is so stinking exciting to me, because the two starts, and me and Mason both were given very much the same lives. We grew up with great parents who loved us and took care of us. We were given an opportunity that not a lot are. But Tyler, you weren't given that opportunity, but you've overcome all that. And here you are, and we're all sitting at the same level, defining success for ourselves, talking about our big goals and our big dreams. And I absolutely love that.
Yeah, you're not, well, we've proven you're not, you can be, but you're not a victim of your circumstances unless you allow yourself to be that. Absolutely. You can make the decision at any point of your life, whether it's the highest or the lowest, you can make the decision to take one step forward, to put one foot in front of the other. And once you do it over and over and over again, you're a million miles away from that lowest point in your life. It's all about making a series of decisions. It's all about making that first step. It's really up to you.
Because here's the deal. Mason. If me and you were talking, if Tyler wasn't sitting where he's at today, if Tyler had not decided to make decisions that he had, and he did just decide to be, even maybe go in the same footsteps as what your parents did, and you didn't turn your life around. Honestly, Mason, if me and you were talking about that situation, we would make excuses for him. And we'd say, well, I mean, look at the life that he was given. Look at what his dad did. Look at what his mom did. Look at what his stepmom did. Of course he did. We would make excuses for him. But he decided, Tyler, you decided not to make excuses. Because
he had every out. He had every way to get out of being successful and being justified in doing so.
But frankly, I do the opposite. I don't let it. I'm not going to say it didn't affect me or still doesn't affect me to this day. I know there's ways mentally that it bothers me. I oftentimes deal with severe anxiety, and I know it's because of like things that I've witnessed as a child and things that I went through. A lot of the drug abuse and things that I put in my body. I'm doing, I'm doing pretty well with it. But nonetheless, I don't look at it as that it gave me a disadvantage. I look at it as fuel for the fire, that it gave me an advantage. I have seen things and have a vantage point that you guys will never have. And again, I'm not bragging about it. Like, I wouldn't wish that childhood on anybody. Boom. But as an entrepreneur, dude, I could be a monster. Like,
it's mindset
with me in a boardroom.
Yes.
Like, good luck. I can be pretty aggressive because of how I was brought up. Like, you know what I mean? Mason knows what I'm talking about.
Freaking sense.
Yeah. So like if something was to happen to me right now, something happened not long ago where a family member just did me really dirty. Like, this is gonna sound outlandish and stupid to your listeners and maybe even you, but I turned around and looked at my life and I said, I'm going to be so rich one day that is going to be ridiculous. Because of this. I'm going to be so rich that it is incomprehensible the amount of money that I have, just to spite the way that they're doing me. And it's not out of hatred that I said that. I just don't want anything to weight me down. I want everything that's ever happened. Every time I thought my child was going to die, every time I thought my marriage wasn't going to make it, every time that I overdosed, every pill that I ever took, every time my father hit my mother, I want to take that and turn it into aggressive, constructive passion towards me being an engineer / entrepreneur / best husband and father that ever lived. Like, I want to do the opposite with it. I don't want excuses. I want to do this. I want to make it. Does that make sense?
It's been a long time since I've been this fired up. I'm going to be honest with you. Like,
I mean, so what?
It's good stuff.
What, this is the thing, guys, and Tyler probably has more fuel than most, but you are going to fuel a fire. And what we live in across the board in this country is a culture that fuels the fire of anxiety and depression, and those things are all real. But you can build on them. You can make them worse. You can pour the gasoline on those fires to absolutely destroy your life. Or you can fight tooth and nail, like Tyler's doing, to build a life for yourself that is different.
Yeah.
You're going to fuel a fire. Which fire you pour the gas on is the one that's going to explode.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. And, going back to him saying, Tyler, you making the statement that, it's almost like it's an advantage for you. It reminded me of something I had just over the weekend. I listened to the podcast that Ed Milet had Alex Rodriguez on. Have you listened to that one? That episode?
Love
Mason?
that episode. Yeah, it's great.
So he made the statement, and honestly, he was talking about 2020. A-Rod was talking about just, entrepreneurs through all of this going on in 2020. And he made a statement. He said, being an entrepreneur is a lot like playing poker. You have to play your good hands well, but your bad hands even better. And that kind of stuck with me. And you making that statement about how, your past and your background being an advantage for you, Mason, we're trying to play our good hands well, if we're honest. Tyler's over here playing a bad hand even better, because he's got something that, like he said, we don't have access to, something inside of him that's pushing him to go further. I love it.
There's not a secret sauce. It's not like Tyler uncovered some great secret to the mysteries of life. Right. He's done exactly what we're talking about, and it's just more real because of his circumstances. But guys, anybody can do this. Yeah. Anybody can do this. Anybody can make the decision to be great. Not once, but every single day when you wake up in the morning, you make the decision to be great, to do great things, to make a positive impact on people, to make your day work for you and to not work for your day. It's all about making that decision every single day. Tyler, I cannot thank you enough, man, for being on the podcast with us today.
For sharing.
Oh, man.
And I mean, it's been phenomenal. I mean, I knew Mason was really excited about this. Obviously, he gave me just a few details, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, let's do this. But this has just been mind blowing. The value, what you've shared with us today is bringing so much. It's been so valuable to me, but so much value to our listenership. And we really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man, it's been great. So we're going to wrap this episode up, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast. Make sure that you subscribe if you liked it, and check us out on our social media platforms at Do the Doubt. And also keep an eye out for the weekly goal call that drops every single Monday. We're having a good time doing those, and we've got some good feedback. If you guys have a topic that you want us to cover, please don't be shy. Shoot us a message. Yep, shoot us a message. Send us a text, comment on a post, whatever it is. Let us know what you want to hear about, and we will do our best to make it happen. And remember, guys, whether you are at the best you've ever been or the lowest you've ever been, when you wake up tomorrow, just crush it.
Crush it.